In the winter of 2017, in Youngstown, Ohio, 28-year-old Shannon Graves would go missing. In this case, we will uncover the truly twisted events. When Shannon was 6, she would meet her sister for the first time. Shannon and her sister, Debbie, shared the same father, but a different mother. Shannon was known to be a smart and funny little girl. As the years would go on, Shannon and Debbie would grow close, but as Shannon got into her teens, she would become more like the friends that she surrounded herself with, more independent, and would move out and live with her friends whose parents would let her. Shannon would drop out of high school and begin work as an adult entertainer. But Shannon still had the dream of going to cosmetology school. Shannon would work all night at a club and would get off work and go home and sleep a few hours. Then she would get up and go to cosmetology school. Shannon was trying to make her dream a reality. In just a short time, Shannon would graduate. Shannon was also known to be a dog lover. She had a pit bull named Molly, and at this point in her life, it would seem that she was getting her life in order. January 2017. It was 2 months after Shannon's birthday, and Shannon's best friend Jade is pregnant. Jade and Shannon had previously talked about Shannon being there for the birth of Jade's baby. Jade was due in March, so Jade would grow concerned that she has not heard from Shannon in the months of January and February. March would come, and Jade's baby was born, and Shannon was nowhere to be found. Shannon was known to disappear for a week or two, but more than a month was not normal. Shannon's friend Katie would go to Shannon's apartment and would also call her with no response. But Shannon's car is there, and Molly can be heard inside barking, so the alarm bells would go off in Katie's head at this point. Shannon would take Molly with her everywhere she could, so if Molly is home and Shannon's car is home, where is Shannon? Debbie would file a police report, and a short time later, Shannon's friends would be posting on Facebook about it. And one day, Debbie would turn on the TV to see her sister's face across the screen. A missing persons detective was assigned Shannon's case. The detective's name was Michael Lambert. Detective Lambert would go on to say that most of the missing persons cases in Youngstown would usually solve themselves. But Shannon's was different because Shannon was reported missing since February. And in April, Shannon's car would be towed after a short pursuit from the police. The man driving the car would be Shannon's boyfriend, Arturo Nueva. While Shannon was working at the Go-Go Club with Jade, she would introduce Arturo to Jade, and Jade would say that Arturo had the darkest eyes and a very mean personality. But that was what attracted Shannon to him. Shannon was known to like the bad boys. Arturo was also known to have a history with the police, but nothing too serious. When questioned about the whereabouts of Shannon by her father, Arturo would say that she moved in February. Shannon's father would ask why her car was still there, and Arturo would say that Shannon was picked up by her boyfriend. So Shannon's father would make arrangements to have Molly picked up. Word would spread around Youngstown, and with it being so small, it would get back to Katie that Shannon ran off with her ex-boyfriend John, and Katie happened to know John. John Scarata and Shannon dated in the past, but John got sent to prison for drug possession and was expecting to live together when he got out. It would appear that Arturo was trying to divert the attention from himself to John. Detective Lambert had a previous relationship with John due to the drug charges, so he wanted to interview him to see if he had anything to do with Shannon being missing.
John, how you doing, man?
How you doing?
Good. How's everything?
Well, as good as it's gonna be, you know.
17th is the last time you saw her. 24th, I gotta use the car. And the 1st.
I didn't see her on the 17th.
You talked to her.
She sent me a message. I didn't get it till after this started. The last time I saw her in person was in December.
From the phone that you gave her.
Right.
You got a text.
No, I got an Instagram message.
Okay.
Yeah.
When did you shut the phone off?
The beginning of February. It should be documented somewhere that they sent somebody over there, right?
Yeah.
Somebody from your...
You called.
I called.
Which number would you have called from?
One of my two numbers. Yeah. You got both my numbers, right?
Did you give him a plate number?
We did give him a plate number.
Yeah. Let me see that. You got a screenshot of that, who that plate?
Man, everything I could think of, I screenshotted of everything.
John would insert himself into the investigation by letting the detective know what he thought might have happened to Shannon and by doing his own surveillance. At this point in the investigation, Arturo and John are the two top suspects, and Shannon is still considered missing. Weeks would pass, only with small facts being collected, and the police would get a break when a Campbell Police Department would receive a call that would lead the detectives into a new direction. It's July 29th, 2017. The police would receive a call from Ken Eschenbach.
Hi, my name is Ken Eschenbach. I need to Campbell Police here right away. We found a dead body in our freezer.
When the crime scene investigator, Tony Mazzula, arrives on the scene, it was Saturday, around 5:30. The dispatcher would let Officer Mazzula know the body had been found in a chest freezer in a basement. As Officer Marzullo approached the freezer, there was a removed hasp block with the screws removed. As the freezer is open, there is no smell due to the body being frozen. Inside of the freezer are black trash bags with body parts in them. The only other thing in the freezer was an orange 5-gallon plastic bucket, and inside of that bucket was the top half of the victim's head. The body had been cut into multiple parts, and the bones were broken so the body would fit in the freezer. At the time the body was discovered, Youngstown had a few missing women, so the Campbell Police Department would reach out to Youngstown to see if the body had anything to do with their missing person case. Detective Lambert would arrive on scene and entered the basement and would see the freezer with a foot sticking out of a black trash bag. The body was unable to be ID'd due to it being frozen, so the body was sent off to the coroner to defrost. The officers wanted to ID the victim as soon as possible, so they would inject saline into the victim's fingertips, and the victim was Shannon Graves. Debbie is driving home from work and receives a call from her father. He informs her that human remains had been found and are believed to be Shannon's. Katie would be in the grocery store when she would hear that a body was found in a freezer and the remains were Shannon's. The question would arise, how did the freezer get into Ken and Jill's basement? Ken and Jill were taken to Youngstown Police Department to be interviewed.
At some point, he brings a freezer to your house. And
Called me.
he called you first.
Asked me if he could. He said, my electricity is basically off. I don't know what that means, basically off. It's either on or it's off. So I just thought that was weird.
Right.
And, hey, I got this freezer. Can I bring it over? Because I don't want my meat to go. I don't want my meat to go bad. I said, I don't care.
Okay, do you know when this was that this happened?
It was July 17th.
So, the next morning, you're doing laundry, and you see the freezer that you knew was there,
It was a couple days
Oh,
later.
okay.
It wasn't.
but there's a padlock on it.
That's what I told him. I said, that's pretty weird. I said, why would who puts a padlock on a freezer like that?
Right.
He's like, I don't know. And, my head was like, I don't know. Why would he do that?
As soon as I opened it, my stomach just flipped. Then I just like, what? That's how you store your meat? And then I'm like, it's not covered. Meat's not covered. And then I recognized the foot.
Ken and Jill were an older couple that were renting a home in Youngstown. A friend of theirs asked them to keep a freezer at their home. On July 29th, Jill would be making dinner and would need some meat, so she would figure that it would be fine to take some meat out of the freezer. Jill would make her way down the stairs to the basement and would begin to unscrew the hasp block that was on the freezer. Ken would tell the detectives that the person that dropped the freezer off was Anthony Gonzalez. The detectives would look to see if there was a Anthony Gonzalez in the Youngstown area, and there would be none living in the area. So Ken would show the detectives a Facebook page, and Anthony would in fact be Arturo Nueva.
Yeah, that's the last. Oh, that's it. Okay.
When interviewed, of course Arturo would deny any knowledge of this happening and would ask for a lawyer.
How you doing? And what is this about?
There's been some developments since I talked to you last.
Must be serious enough to pull me out of work.
Yeah. Now I have a freezer with a body in it in a guy's house who says, you know, Anthony brought this freezer over here and we opened it up.
So I basically got all these fingers just being pointed at me, and
Yeah.
now there's a body involved.
Now there's
This is gonna take so long. I'm gonna lose my job.
You're gonna lose your job? Did you hear what I said? This ain't about your Outback dishwasher job anymore. There's a body in a freezer. And the guy said you brought it to his house.
Can I make a phone call? Because I'm gonna need to obviously get a hold of a lawyer.
Oh, would you like to talk to a lawyer?
I would like to call my lawyer, yes.
Okay.
Arturo would be arrested, and subsequently a warrant would be issued for the apartment that he and Sharon shared. Upon the search, weird things would be found, such as a book on witchcraft, a cleaver in the door frame, and some spots of what were thought to be human blood. The police would also find a receipt for another apartment that Arturo was renting. With this new lead, the police would begin a search of Arturo's new apartment and would immediately find scuff marks on a newly painted floor. In the apartment, the police would find a receipt from the Arctic King, and along with the basket that went to the freezer. The police would also get a new name from Ken and Jill, being Arturo's new girlfriend, Katrina Layton.
Katrina and Anthony, pretty tight. You think she knows about this?
You mean like my personal opinion? Absolutely. I told my wife when you guys were out and I was on part, I said, Jill, I think Trina, we call it Trina. I think Trina knows everything about it. I think she knows everything about it. I just think she does.
Katrina and Arturo dated before Shannon and Arturo dated, and after. While Shannon was missing, Katrina would live with Arturo in Shannon's apartment. Katrina was always hanging around Arturo and Shannon, trying to break the two up. She would often find where the two were and just show up, and this would lead to Shannon beating Katrina up many times. Katrina was known to be like a creepy shadow, just there all the time. While being interviewed, Katrina would be very suspicious.
There's been some developments.
Alright, well, let me know what's going
We
on.
have some other questions for you.
Okay. I mean, I'll give you whatever information I
Okay, because
know.
you're kind of, here's where we're at. We're at the point where you gotta kind of pick a side on this because you have some exposure here.
Okay. You mean
So-
by living with him?
You have some exposure by the things that have happened since she disappeared.
Okay.
Okay. So, without prompting you in any way, can you tell me everything you know about Shannon and her disappearance and where she is?
The problem is, like I told you before, I don't know much about her, like as a person.
The question is, where was she between February and July?
I don't know. I didn't even.
Right now, she's in your freezer.
Well,
So-
that I didn't know.
Oh, okay.
It's
You know, I
funny-
told you about 10 times that the missing girl is dead in your freezer.
It-
I'm looking for some kind of reaction. But
because
You don't
I'm.
look shocked at all.
Yeah.
No, it's not that. I'm just trying to process everything.
Oh, okay.
Because
Oh,
I'm
wait.
trying to figure
Oh, wait.
out. I'm trying to figure out how the hell I gave Anthony the money to buy something for the house, and from that point to this,
Let me ask you
now
something.
you're telling me there's a freezer
Let me ask you
in a
something.
different house.
Let me ask you something. Forget all this. Did you kill her?
Hell no.
Were you there when she was killed?
No. What?
Well, sure looks like you did.
No. What do you mean? It looks like I did.
She's in your freezer.
I can't sit in this room with the door shut. I'm getting claustrophobic.
Can't use the small rooms.
I didn't do anything to this girl.
Can't use the small rooms.
How are you gonna accuse me of this? What the man?
With Arturo and Katrina being arrested, the investigation would be kicked into high gear. With the information of the arrest of the two, phone calls would start to pour into the police department. Witnesses would describe a third person being involved, with a friend of Arturo's named Andrew Harmon. It would turn out that John was still acting as an investigator in Shannon's case, gathering information about Andrew, such as Arturo and Andrew burning items that belonged to Shannon back in March in Youngstown. John would happen to know the guys that lived in the house where the bonfire was taking place. Andrew was a sick man, the kind of guy that idolized Jeffrey Dahmer and Ted Bundy. Andrew was also a student of the occult. John would go to the house where the bonfire was held and would find a basket that had some of Shannon's things. Andrew was a friend of Arturo's who lived with him at one point. Andrew would tell the detectives on March 1st, 2017, Arturo and himself would burn a bag of Shannon's things.
At this point, we believe Anthony and Katrina and possibly you were involved in killing Shannon. Shannon is dead.
Yeah,
We now know Shannon is dead.
They asked me what's with the bag.
Uh-huh.
I said, we're getting rid of it. And he said, is it illegal? I said, maybe. I believe it's a little legal, but it's nothing you need to be worried about.
The detectives start to believe the three of these individuals had a hand in the death of Shannon, but they were not sure who killed Shannon. The best they can conclude was all three had something to do with the death. Arturo would continue to deny having anything to do with Shannon's death, but at pre-trial, he would state that Katrina was the one to kill Shannon by hitting her in the head with a hammer. Katrina would tell the detectives that Arturo would call her in a panic and ask her to come to Shannon's apartment. When she arrived, she would find Arturo in a trance, looking into a void, and Arturo would point Katrina to the bathroom, where Shannon was lying dead on the floor. At this point, the two had been interviewed so many times that the detective wouldn't believe anything the pair would say.
31-year-old Arturo Novoa and his current girlfriend, 34-year-old Katrina Layton, who were shackled and cuffed in court, signed waivers allowing a Mahoning County grand jury to determine if there's enough evidence to charge them with abuse of a corpse.
Ms. Layton, do you have any questions about waiving your right to have a preliminary hearing on the felony?
Both were charged after the body of Novoa's girlfriend, Shannon Graves, was found July 29th in a freezer that was bought by Layton.
Arturo and Katrina are charged with abuse of the corpse. Due to the media coverage of the case, the Youngstown Police Department would receive calls from the local Walmart saying that a clerk had seen Arturo and Katrina.
Yes, sir.
He made some kind of internet order
Yes.
with a ship to Walmart to save on the shipping.
Yes, sir.
And it came in batches, not all at once,
Not at once.
but by the 11th of March,
Yes, sir.
all of the items that he ordered
Were in.
And
Yes.
what were those items?
They were bottles of sulfuric acid. I don't know if it was like drained sulfuric acid. My paperwork just said,
Sulfuric acid.
yes.
All right, bottles of it.
Yes.
Anything else?
No.
The two were trying to dissolve Shannon's body with sulfuric acid and wash it down the drain. However, they would buy an off-brand that was not 100% sulfuric acid, so they would revert to the freezer idea. The detectives believed that Katrina was jealous of Arturo and Shannon's relationship, and one day it was enough for her to kill Shannon, and Arturo tried his best to get rid of the body with his friend Andrew. The reason the detectives believe this is because Katrina would tell the detectives that Andrew helped dismember Shannon's body. Arturo would ask Andrew what they should do with the parts, and Andrew would be the one to recommend sulfuric acid. When that didn't work, they would just put Shannon's body parts into trash bags, then into the freezer. By July, Arturo knew the police would come looking for Shannon, so he would try to get rid of the freezer by storing it at a friend's home. Needless to say, that was not the smartest thing. Arturo Nueva is sentenced to 48 years for the murder of Shannon Graves. Katrina Layton is sentenced to 18 years for tampering with evidence and obstruction of justice. Andrew Harmon is sentenced to 12 years for abuse of a corpse. When it comes to cases like this, it makes you think about how one person's selfishness can hurt so many people, their own family, and the families of the victims. Until next time.